The biggest mistake I made in my business was not hiring a professional to help me with my money. Not just my taxes, but the actual plan I had for my business. I was completely lost on how to handle taxes, what to do with profit, and how to maintain my income. I had to find a better way. That's when I found Core Financial. Core Financial is a team of tax professionals that actually care about building real relationships with their clients. They run my books, keep me up to date with my finances, and make sure I'm taking full advantage of all of my tax benefits. Are you struggling with your finances? Look no further. Core Financial is a brand that is nationwide that can help you with your business. Both Nick and I are huge fans of Core, and they can help you too. Check out howtofilmweddings.com/core to schedule a consultation today. Core Financial, real relationships, no surprises. Hello and welcome to How to Film Weddings. Nick, it's a big day. It's a new week. We had our good friend Max Sadik on today. This guy is a Facebook, YouTube, Instagram marketing sales genius. And I don't want to waste any time, Nick. Like, I know it's you got a lot going on. I got a lot going on, but I really want to say hi. Hi.
Hi.
Yes, and I want to jump into this week's episode.
Okay. Okay. It's a good week. Yeah, let's go.
All right. Well, Max Sadik is back. Thank you, Max, for joining us again. I think this might be your third time podcasting with us, or fourth or something, but why don't you say hello to How to Film Weddings and kind of let people know who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me back for the third time. You guys are now officially the #1 podcast I've been on by frequency. So absolutely love being on your podcast. And it's not just because I love the two of you, but I also love your audience. You guys have a solid audience. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm some random dude who sits at home and launches courses for people in the wedding industry, and also helps wedding pros be rock stars at converting, some random brides and grooms into paying clients by running some awesome ads. Living the work from home dream with a baby. If you guys hear a baby screaming in the background, that's the reality of working from home. Mm-hmm. You guys know those memes of this is what I thought it would be like, this is what it's really like. I need one of those for working from home.
Yes.
2020 has been the busiest year of my life until 2021 started. And now I'm realizing with the shifts in the economy as a whole, but specifically in our markets, things will never be the same, even when COVID's done. So I'm excited to chat because those of us that are nailing their marketing online will absolutely see their businesses explode. And those of us that are clinging to old ways will probably die out, unfortunately.
Yes, it's always so refreshing to hear from you. And for those that don't know, Max helped us with our complete wedding videography launch this time last year, I guess. So that was quick, and seems like 5 years ago at the same time. I don't know why COVID does that to me, but we found you through a friend, and just you blew us away with your knowledge on marketing, just how you helped us set everything up and get in front of the right people, and really helped launch our brand into what it is today. And you do that with so many influential people in the wedding industry. And so every time I see somebody launching a course, if they're doing it right, I'm like, oh yeah, Max is helping them launch that, or launch that product, or launch that thing. And so we were looking back through our episodes over the last 2 years, and of the top 10 episodes, both of your episodes are in our top 10 of downloads, and people are like, we want more Max. And so really excited to have you back on. And you mentioned it just about like the world obviously has changed a lot since, this time last year. We launched our course in February, and then in March, everything just changed. So I haven't really had much time to catch up with you since then, since COVID hit. And I guess the first question I would really have for you is like, what are you seeing changing for marketers in a COVID or post-COVID world?
Yeah, so I don't think that COVID is the reason for the change. I think COVID is the quick acceleration. We were on the trajectory for that change to begin with. I would say roughly somewhere around 2010 or 2011, we've moved to a new phase of marketing, but it was very subtle. You know, just like any other revolution, it starts very slowly. And, you know, the insiders in the industry were predicting that it'll take about about 15 to 20, maybe even 25 years for the change to happen. And then COVID happened, and we covered about 10 years worth of ground in a few months. Basically what happened is this. As the millennials started aging and coming out, and this, by the way, applies to other industries, but I'm specifically going to speak to the wedding industry because that's the industry we care about. Screw all the other industries. As millennials are aging and more of them becoming married, and so hence don't need your services anymore as a wedding videographer, and more of your couples are becoming Gen Z, these are the couples that had an iPhone in their hand when they were in middle school. Like, their perception of reality is radically different from those who remember childhood with no phones, period, and no internet. Like, I remember getting the first time internet in our house. Like, I was a teenager. Well, maybe not. Yeah, a teenager. I was 13 when we got internet in the house. And the generation that is now beginning to inquire with you guys, these people were born into households with internet. This is like, just to compare, just to understand how radical it is. Think of a generation where the parents were born before the electricity in the houses, but then you have kids that were born in households with electricity. That's a big radical change. And we might not realize how psychologically it impacts people, but the lens through which we see the world is different fundamentally. Guys, the way I see the world, John, Nick, the way you guys see the world will never be the same as those that are 10 or 12 years younger than us, just because of that shift. And already things were starting to move to the internet when it comes to shopping for a wedding, when it comes to planning a wedding. But then COVID happened and kind of prevented us from being able to go anywhere. And voila, everything just accelerated and went super quick. So we went from, wedding shows being still an important factor to now where that importance is shifting away from wedding shows to online things. We went from, perhaps you wanting to dazzle your couple by delivering a tablet that plays their wedding video, to you dazzling your couple by offering live streaming from the wedding so that guests can watch. Like, the fundamental needs have changed. And they were supposed to take a decade to change, and they just did it like this in a few months. So here we are.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really interesting perspective. And, when you put it like that, like, yeah, there's so many things that have changed in such a short period of time. But, it's one of those things where people that have been doing this a long time are just going to struggle with that shift because, this has been fine for me for 5, 8, 10 years. And now, these same things are not fine with me anymore, right? And so I think that you agree, the kind of adapt and grow or perish, when it comes to how we're reaching our couples and how we're serving our communities and stuff, it definitely needs to adapt. So with that in mind, in how we've basically, grown a decade in 10 months, right? With how we market and how we reach people and stuff, what should businesses really be focusing on now that maybe, a year ago you wouldn't have really pushed us to be focusing on in a certain way? What would you say to that?
Yeah. So number one is, remember this, the why hasn't changed. So what changes the how, right? But the why hasn't. You guys in the video business still have the biggest gift. You are naturally, as part of your job, are storytellers, and that hasn't changed about marketing. We're still telling stories. And there isn't another industry that I can think of, or even within the wedding industry, there isn't another segment of vendors who have it so much served to them on a silver platter. You guys already naturally are storytellers. You naturally are producing amazing video content. Like, you guys are literally at the top of being able to just grab this bull by the horns. What has changed is the how. So number one, like I said, wedding shows, they already were working less and less and less every year. That trend's going to accelerate, right? Number two, the type of services that you're offering. Whereas how you were offering your services, and remember, your service offerings are part of your marketing, right? It doesn't feel that way because you're like, well, I'm rendering the services after they sign the contract. But it is part of your marketing because after the signature of a contract is before the signature of the next contract by the next couple. You know, after a deposit for a wedding is before a deposit by the next couple. And so the type of services that you were offering, if you were more leaning towards how you were going to serve them in person, now you need to worry more about how you were going to serve them online. Like, I'll give you one example. I still see so many videographers saying that when I ask, how do you deliver after the wedding? Oh, I just send them a Dropbox link. And I'm like, nah, that's too basic. You know, back in the day, maybe you could just give them a flash drive or send them, you gotta dazzle. There has to be some kind of process there that has to leave an impression on them. If you're just sending them a Dropbox link, that ain't an impression. That's just like, here you go, get out of my way so I can move on to the next couple. So that's just one example where you can change things on a back end to improve things on the front end. Also, as far as marketing goes, finding ways to get closer to your couples on the front end with starting conversations, as opposed to, you know, renting billboard ads on the Knot and Wedding Wire, which no longer work. Like, nobody cares about the Knot and Wedding Wire anymore. And, you know, we went from here's a billboard to now we went to you got to have a conversation with them even before they book you, even before they inquire with you. So, yeah.
I love that. I every time, you know, we chat with you, I'm more and more inspired to, you know, because I'm in a position in my business and I don't want to be the guy that's, you know, caught skinny dipping when the tide goes out. I think I've said before, where it's like I'm not paying attention to my marketing enough. For, you know, I feel solid in I have 15 bookings this year, and but like, if you're not changing along with like your audience, you're going to be, you know, like everyone in every market can think of like those old school videographers that walked around with a big camera and a big light, or maybe you can't anymore if you're listening, but there were people that were like the shiz when it came to wedding videographers in Tulsa when I first got going. And a lot of them that didn't make a shift into whether it be the new technology or the way they've, you know, they're no longer in business. And it's a weird conversation to have when they call you and say, hey, do you have any second shooting jobs, or do you have any, you know, and it's like they were the big dogs and so intimidating. But the people that are changing with the times and that are capitalizing on that are the ones that are winning in their business. And so I'm always inspired when I talk to you about like, oh yeah, I've got to really stay on the edge of my game when it comes to the way that I market, the kinds of conversations that I'm having. And, you know, when we talk about Max and talk to you, a lot of what you do is online marketing. And so maybe you could speak to the kinds of things that you're doing for wedding filmmakers, wedding photographers, educators, like where you're spending or where you should be spending your dollars and how you should be having that conversation with people as they're getting engaged or even before.
Yeah, very, very good. Good question. So, number one, you should have a marketing budget, right? I'm a big fan of organic. I think there's a place for organic, but not to put some budget behind your marketing is to not give oxygen to the lungs of the runner, right? So I do think that every business should have a marketing budget. And that marketing budget should include a couple of things. It should include production of assets. That means that the film that you shot at a wedding and delivered to a bride is not usable as an ad. That has to be reworked, whether that means sending it to your editor and paying them to re-edit it, or whether it means allocating a certain number of editing hours for yourself, which, by the way, your time is money. So allocating a certain number of hours for yourself in your schedule throughout the year where you are going to have to sit down and re-edit those videos, because as you deliver them to the couple, they don't work for ads. So there is that part of the marketing budget, this production of assets. Then there's the part of the marketing budget of running ads on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, right? I don't think it's a good idea for an average filmmaker to run Google search ads for a simple reason. They're way too expensive and they tend to get them too far into the funnel, too far into the planning journey. And so not that they don't work, it's just that they're not very efficient, specifically for wedding filmmakers, right? If you were selling wedding gear, right? If wedding filmmaking gear, if you're selling cameras, if you're selling SD cards, all of that, then yeah, Google ads are great. But specifically for you guys, Facebook and Instagram ads, and as far as the Google ecosystem, YouTube is pure gold. Like literally, even in my opinion, even better than Facebook and Instagram, which you guys know I'm a Facebook, Instagram guy, but YouTube is even better. And so this is how I see a very, very successful videography business happening. So step one is investing some money into driving ads to bring a couple that's completely not ready for a filmmaker yet to your ecosystem. You know, whether it's running a YouTube ad, whether it's running an Instagram ad, whether it's running a Facebook ad, you grab them somewhere along the line where they're still shopping for a venue. Now, they're not even thinking of films yet, but you don't want to wait till they're thinking of films. So you run an ad, and I'll give you a basic example. Say you create a club on Clubhouse where you host once a week a chat about planning weddings. Say you create a Facebook group, like a support Facebook group for couples where they can join. They don't have to be your client. Any couple can join. The only requirement is that they're engaged. They join the group where they can get support. Whether it is you hold a once a month workshop for couples for free, right? All of that, it's not just one. All of that makes an ecosystem. And go for what you feel best at. Like if you love being on camera, fantastic. Then, you know, live workshops are your thing. If you prefer just having voice, Clubhouse will be your thing. If you are better with written stuff, well, heck, provide written guides and stuff. But the idea is you're catching them early and you're bringing them to your ecosystem, not to sell them on filmmaking, right? It's too early for that. It's like freaking trying to sell a 12-year-old girl in a wedding dress. It's too early. She's not ready, right? So you bring them in there because you're going to help educate them on the wedding businesses. On planning a wedding as a whole. And as they're interacting with you over a period of, 45 to 90 days, they realize you're a freaking expert. You really know what you're doing. That's when the actual selling process begins. That's when you convince them that films are important. A wedding without a film is not properly documented. Photos are just not enough. But you can't hop right into that and grab an unsuspecting couple, and they're just looking for a venue right now, and here you are ramming down their throat an idea that they must have a film. It's too early. Bring them in, show them you're an expert, gain their trust through a series of workshops or whatever, then go ahead and convince them that films are important. And that's not a difficult thing to do, right? It's pretty easy to convince a person why a film is important. And then when they begin to shop for films, just sit back and wait for the inquiry. You don't have to do anything else. In fact, retargeting is wonderful, but you don't actually even have to do that, because by the time they begin shopping for a filmmaker, they already have so much respect for you. They're going to inquire with you regardless. Now, they're also going to inquire with other people, but those other people haven't done the legwork. Because guess what? What I just outlined is quite a bit of work. And, 80% of people won't do it because it's too much work.
Yeah, that's really true. Something that you mentioned there. So we talked about, Facebook and Instagram and brought in YouTube ads and all this kind of stuff. So what are specifically with YouTube? Let me ask you this question. If I'm making ads, I have one for Facebook, I have one for Instagram, and you can kind of use the same thing for those. But for YouTube, am I making a totally different thing, or am I kind of making the same thing across all three? Like what should I be thinking about with those kind of ads?
Yeah. So when you're creating ads on a platform, they have to be native. And when I say native, I mean they have to fit what the platform is for. So ask yourself, what do people use YouTube for? Right? What's the typical usage of YouTube? In fact, go back and pay attention to your own usage of YouTube. Do you chat with friends on YouTube? No. Do you engage in conversations and groups on YouTube? No. You normally go to YouTube for one of two purposes. You're either going to learn something, so you're researching a topic and you're going to watch YouTube videos for that, or you just want to get entertained and you want to watch videos, and you're essentially using YouTube how you would use Netflix or TV, right? So the type of ad you're producing needs to fit that ecosystem, right? So assuming you are advertising to couples that are planning a wedding, what are they doing on YouTube? Well, they're researching different aspects of planning a wedding, how to do this, how to do that. Now, in fact, if you want to know exactly not only how to do your ads, but where to run them, go on YouTube, type how to plan a wedding, and start looking at some of the best channels. Watch some of their videos. Now, some of the most engaging YouTube channels on planning a wedding look at how they structure their videos, then don't copy them, but take the same direction, create your own workshops with the same direction, then place your own workshops as an ad specifically on their channel, right? Now, if a YouTube channel already has 1 million subscribers and they put out regular education on how to plan a wedding, you create similar education and place it as an ad specifically in front of their videos. And of course, one channel is not enough, so you need a list of. So maybe you find 100 channels and place your education specifically in front of their videos. Now, when they're watching your free workshop that's running as an ad, you're continuously inviting them to click on the link and go to your channel and subscribe, because there's a lot more goodies over there, right? So you're not trying to sell them anything. You're not even trying to get their email address. Screw the email address. We don't need it yet. It's too early. You're just trying to get them to come subscribe to your channel, right? Now, the same videos that you're putting on your channel as regular videos, you're also running them or similar videos. You're also running them as an ad. But notice how native that feels. You're not running an ad that says, click here and inquire with me today. None of that crap. You're just giving them whatever you would. If you wouldn't post it organically on YouTube, don't run it as an ad. Obviously, it needs to be slightly re-edited because you have to have call to actions like click on that link down there or up there and come to my channel. So there's a little bit of re-editing to do. But as far as the actual content of the ad, it should be very similar to what you would run, what you would upload to your YouTube channel organically. Now, when you go to Facebook and Instagram, same wouldn't work. I would never take a 25-minute workshop video and run it as an ad on Facebook. It's going to flop. But I will run it as an ad on YouTube. So just ask yourself, how are my couples using this specific platform? How can I create ads that feel like they're an organic post that doesn't feel salesy whatsoever?
Whew. I hope you're writing notes down, people out there in the world. This is good stuff. Such good stuff. Man, I mean, hearing from you, as always, I get all fired up. There's a lot more for us to talk about. I want to get into it, but we're going to do it right after this break.
What would you take on if you had an extra set of hands? What would you do with your free time if you didn't have to edit? So many of us get bogged down in the post-production hustle that we never seem time to focus on our business. John and I both felt that way. Until we found Wedditor. Wedditor is a post-production team of top wedding film editors and project managers that give your films and brand the extra eyes, ears, and hands that they need. Not only is Wedditor delivering films we love to our couples faster, but we can invest ourselves fully in other areas of our business knowing that Wedditor has our back. Be the first to know how your second shooters are doing, how those new LUTs work with your footage, and relax knowing your couples are getting the full attention they deserve on every single project. So what could you do with an extra hand? Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedditor, whether you're ready to start now or preparing for next season. Be sure to use promo code HTFW for $50 off your first project. If you're interested in this service, make sure you head over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedditor soon. Fall 2020 spots are lined up and filling up fast. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing.
Finding the perfect song for your wedding film can be so frustrating. We spend countless hours searching for the perfect song. When it comes to licensing music, Nick and I both love MusicBed. Not only do they have the best music, but their website makes it so easy to find the perfect song and to find it fast. We have both been using the MusicBed's wedding subscription for years and cannot recommend it enough. Not only are they adding new music from incredible musicians like Chapters, The Light, The Heat, and Tony Anderson all the time, they've made it incredibly easy to search their library for mood, genre, instrumentation, and even key. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed and use promo code HTFW for a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription. howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. All right, we are back from break. We're going to start this segment with our question of the day presented by Wedditor. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing. So we've been talking about getting people to get warmed up to us, and then let's say they inquire. I guess my question for you would be, after people inquire with you, what's the next step? What do we do after that? How do we get them to say yes? What's that look like for you as a wedding filmmaker?
Yeah, great question. So number one, if you are running a larger operation where you're likely to get, 100 to 200 inquiries per month. And by the way, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but there are studios out there that are turning that type of volume. If you are running that type of operation, then retargeting ads should definitely be a part of this, right? Staying in front of them. But if you're running a smaller operation where you're maybe getting 7 inquiries a month, 5 inquiries a month, which could also be enough to make 6 figures, right? You don't necessarily have to make, sorry about that. That's my, that's my boss. You don't necessarily have to make $5 million a year. You could shoot, 20 weddings a year, make your 120K, and live a very, very comfortable lifestyle, right? Now, but if you are shooting 20 weddings a year, and if you are just getting your, 5 to 7 inquiries a month, retargeting ads are not going to be a thing you do. They're just not going to fit in your system. So instead, you want to be able to get to a point where they don't ghost you, right? Because if they ghost you, forget it. We're pretty much done. So number one, when they inquire, there is such a thing as too little info, and there is such a thing as too much info, right? You don't want to make them feel like they're drinking out of a fire hose. I've seen some responses to inquiries. So one of the things that I do when I coach people, I'll go use a fake email address and inquire as, like make up a name of a couple and inquire. And some of the inquiry responses that I get, I'm like, whoa, like imagine going on a first date and asking your date like, hey, what city did you grow up in? And in their response, they give you their entire history with painstaking details, including their blood type, their credit score, and all of that. You'd probably be like, I better run before this person chops me up and puts me in their trunk. Right? Yes. So I've seen some inquiry responses and I'm like, whoa, like that's way too much. But then I've also seen others where I specifically ask in the email, like, hey, how much does your service cost? And they respond back like, well, I can't really give it to you right now. First, we have to hop on a call and then I will send. And I'm like, that just feels like a sleazy salesman, like you're beating around the bush. So there is such thing as too little and there is such thing as too much. Make sure that your inquiry responses, A, answer every question they directly asked, and B, don't answer questions they didn't ask, right? Don't automatically assume they want to know that. So a typical inquiry response would look something like this. Hey, we're getting married on July 27th and we wanted to see if you're available and how much does it cost? Right? They are asking those 2 questions because that's the only 2 questions they can think about, right? Mm-hmm. If you were shopping for solar panels, you would probably just ask like, hey, how much does solar panels cost and what can I expect to save? Why? Because that's all you can think about if you're not a solar panels professional. So it's the same for them. They don't know what to ask. They ask like these 2 basic questions. You want to come back to them and first of all, you don't want to beat around the bush and you want to say something to the tune of, well, my collections start at XYZ, but because I would love to give you a custom quote, after I understand what your needs are, I'll be able to give you exact, precise to the penny price of what your needs are. But just so you know, this is where we start. And I would love to hop for us on a call, but if you're not available for a call, we can totally continue communicating via email. However, just so you know, if we hop on a call, we'll be able within, a short phone call, have everything, discussed and then you'll have all the information you need as opposed to going back and forth for several days. So you want to kind of push them towards the phone call, but then at the same time, not be like, hey, it's a phone call or nothing, because that's how you're going to lose them, right? Because most people don't want to hop on a phone with somebody that they don't know. It feels awkward. It feels weird. Now, better yet, if you can naturally engage in the conversation and offer the phone call 2 or 3 emails in, it'll be much easier to get a yes. Much, much easier. On the first one, it feels awkward. But then later on, it feels easier. Think of you are in a bar and you begin to interact with another person. Ask for their phone number on the first thing you say, and they're probably not going to give it to you. But have a 10-minute conversation and then ask for a phone number, and your chances like quadruple, if not more. It's like that ice breaks and people become more comfortable. Now, I see this mistake done on both ends. I see some filmmakers absolutely do not want to hop on a call, and that's a mistake. And I see some filmmakers will not give you a freaking quote without hopping on a call, and that's a mistake as well. Why is it a mistake to absolutely not wanting to hop on a call? Well, here's the thing. And this is very basic knowledge in psychology. When you communicate, the actual words you're saying, the actual, like if you were to type those words, they carry only 7% of the total message. We weren't originally, when, you know, whether you believe in evolution or not, I can tell you that our brain didn't evolve to have speech from the very, very beginning. And people didn't speak right out of the gate. So how do we communicate? Well, the tonality of our voice and the sound of our voice actually carries 15% of the message. So that's already more than twice than the actual words. But then the body language combined with the facial expressions carry the rest. So if you think about it, your facial expressions in your body carry more, like what, 3 or 4 times more than the voice and the words combined together. And that's because there were millions of years that all we could gauge from one another is based on how their face looked, how their body language, right? I can tell you that I'm happy by simply smiling and laughing. I can tell you that I'm angry by making an angry face. So those messages are much, much more powerful. So if you don't want to hop on a Zoom call with them, and if you don't want to hop on a phone call with them, you're foregoing 93% of the messaging, and you're restricting yourself to that 7% box. On the flip side of things, if you're absolutely insisting on a phone call and you're absolutely insisting on a Zoom call, there's going to be people that are simply not going to do it. They might be too busy. They might be too shy. They might be too young. Young people hate phone calls. And so there's a happy medium. There's that flexibility of letting them choose that feels like such good customer service, right? What do they say? The golden rule is treat others like you want to be treated, but the platinum rule is treat others like they want to be treated. Just ask them, like, hey, are you cool with hopping on a phone call and making this process easier? Or do you prefer us continue via email? And if they say via email, just honor that. Let's do what they want, but just know that you have to really articulate your thinking really, really sharply.
Man, yeah. It's so, like, it's one of those things that as you say it and you're putting out there, you're kind of like, well, duh, of course that makes sense. But, you know, we've been trained, or we've thought like this is the way that we need to do things for so long that it's almost like, you know, mind blowing, but it's very, you know, common sense kind of stuff. If you just treat people how you want to be treated. And like, I know our friend Elaine at KEJ in Florida, she said that whenever she was planning, she said, we send our full pricing sheet on first email. And the reason that she does that is, she said, when I planned my wedding 4 years ago, you know, people wanted phone calls and people wanted, and I was like, I don't want to do that because I didn't like that. And, just taking that and thinking about it. So, man, I really like it. So let me say this. Let me ask you this, you know, kind of continuing with the inquiry process and how it all works with marketing and all that. So where do you go? Let's say they hop on the phone call with you and you're talking with them, or you kind of get into this, you know, now we're getting into the phase where I'm asking you, hey, do you want to hire me? You know, we're entering into that conversation. Let's say we get them there. So what do you recommend about, you know, actually closing in on those sales, you know, like locking in that couple so that they do hire you? Where do you go from there? What do you say about that?
Yeah, definitely. So before we even go there, just a quick note about sending the pricing sheet versus not sending it. So you guys are not selling, Snickers bars or chocolate bars or t-shirts. You're selling a very complex service that most people are not familiar with. I would compare you more to like a high-end vehicle mechanic or maybe a plastic surgeon than I would compare you to somebody who sells t-shirts or I don't know, or dishes for the kitchen, right? So you're a specialist. You're not a generalist. Now, think of it this way. Imagine that you called your mechanic and you said, hey, I'm hearing a weird noise out of my car. I want to come in and have it looked at. And they replied, well, you didn't call, you emailed them. And they replied back with a list of every single car part with its price, how much labor would cost. How would you feel a little overwhelmed? You'd be like, a little bit. WTF, what is this? Right? I don't even know half of these parts, what they do. Now, and God forbid if you drive an electric car, it'd be even worse. This is the thing. I'm not against sending a full price sheet if they specifically ask for it. If somebody inquires with you and says, could I have your entire price sheet? Yeah, of course. I don't want to beat around the bush. I have nothing to hide. Here it is. But if they don't specifically ask for it, you might be overwhelming them, right? Just maybe, right? Because they don't know what they need. Do I need 3 shooters or do I just 1 shooter is enough? Do I need to have, certain things that you guys offer? Like, I wouldn't, if I'm an average American, if I'm not in the wedding industry, like, I would know because I've interacted with so many videographers. But if I was an average random person on the street, half of what you guys do, I would have no idea what it means. So in my opinion, unless they specifically ask for it, on the very first reply, that might be too soon. Okay, so going into what happens next. All right, so they inquired with you, you responded back, you've communicated over 3 to 5 emails, and they're ready to hop on a call. So number one, before you hop on that call, this is very, very important. 5 minutes before your phone call, go up to a mirror, whether it's in your bathroom, in your closet, wherever you have a nice mirror, stand in front of that mirror and smile. Literally, I'm not joking. Stand in front of that mirror, look yourself in the face and smile. And if you can get yourself to giggle, then giggle. Why? It's gonna automatically uplift your energy. There's been numerous psychological studies done. If you do this, and unfortunately those that are listening to this on audio won't see, but at least on YouTube they'll see, there's been psychologically proven in studies. If you simply do this, all right, put a pen in your mouth, it causes your face to kind of have a smile. That sends signals to your brain that you're happy, that you're smiling. Seriously, if you're feeling depressed, put a pencil or a pen in your mouth like that for 5 minutes, you'll feel better. It sounds crazy, but the way our brain and our body interacts is actually a two-way highway. It's not brain sending signals to the body and nothing else. It's brain sending signals to the body sending signals back. So when you have a smile on your face, your brain goes like, oh, maybe I just missed why we're happy, but we're happy, right? It's like the brain doesn't give it a lot of thinking. It's just like, oh, we're smiling. That means we're happy. Okay, we're happy. And you want to do that before you get on the calls because you're going to get on that call a more uplifted, more happier version of you. And I see John's already practicing. Good job.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. So when you get on the phone call, like, don't go straight to business. Like that just feels kind of cold. Like, have a conversation. The first portion of your phone call, you should be talking about 5% and listening about 95%, right? Listening is such a freaking wonderful tool. If you want to make a lot of money, learn how to listen. It's hard. For me, it's a super hard thing to do because I love talking. I have the diarrhea of the mouth. That's why I love being on podcasts. I get to talk a lot. But seriously, if you want to make a lot of money, just shut up and listen. Ask them questions about them. Get them to tell you, not only about the wedding, don't jump immediately like, okay, where are you getting married? What's your date? Why are you, like, have a conversation. Like, how did you guys meet? Tell me that story. Like, and then listen. Be like, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Ask other questions. Now, why is this important? Well, number one, it's going to give you a ton of good material for later. A lot of good material for later. Number two, again, psychological rules here. Who do we open up to? We don't open up to strangers. We open up to friends and family. Well, if you just got them to open up for half an hour, guess what? Whether they know it consciously or not on a subconscious level, they feel closer to you because they just opened up and talked to you so much. This is why if you've ever been to a therapy session, after a few sessions, you feel much closer to your therapist than you did when you first walked into that room. Just allowing them to talk about not wedding related stuff. Like, what do you do for a living? Oh, that's fascinating. Tell me more about it. Oh shit, you're a CPA. Oh man, you must have a lot of patience to just sit in front of those spreadsheets. I'd love to know more about how did you become a CPA? What made you want to do that? Like, that sounds like a very difficult degree to get. Like, you must be really smart. Tell me more about that. Like, don't be afraid. Like, I don't believe in giving false compliments. That's a bad idea. But if somebody tells you, for example, like, oh, I write programs for a living. Well, that's admirable. That's hard. Like, I don't know how to write programs. It's okay to compliment on things that you truly feel are admirable, right? Somebody tells you that they're a pilot. You're like, oh, dang, I wish I could fly a plane. That sounds like so cool. Like, that's not a fake compliment. That's true. I wish I could fly a plane. Give them some compliments that are true compliments. Listen to what they have to say intently. Don't just sit there and create a vacuum that allows them to speak, but actually listen. Don't think of what you're going to say later. Don't take notes. There's no need to take notes. They're not telling you anything that requires for you to remember, exactly. If they're not giving you a phone number that you need to write down, just listen, right? Just literally just listen. Do nothing. Don't think about anything. Don't think about what you have to do later. Don't take notes. Just listen. Once you're done with that, they're already feeling good. You should be feeling really good as well. At that point, you should have already also asked a few questions of what's important for them in wedding video. How do they see their wedding unfolding? What are they hoping to get as a finished product? You should have already asked all those questions. Now you're going to come back and offer them your collections. Now, there's nothing wrong with a la carte, but I'll tell you this, a la carte is much harder to sell. So unless you're a real pro at selling, especially if you're a beginner, try and stick with collections because it's easier to sell. It's easier to manage. Now, you can make more money with a la carte, but again, it's a professional move for people who've been doing it for a while and really know their way around selling. So I recommend, especially for beginners, start with packages or collections. Present it to them. Also, when you're naming your collections, notice how I said packages, but I quickly corrected myself to collections. The word you use matters because packages are cheap, collections are luxury, right? Packages is something you get through the post office, dropped off at your door in an ugly brown box. Collection is something that an artist puts out or an expensive car company puts out, right? So choosing the right words. When you're sending, so like when you are saying those things, use the right words. And when you're presenting the pricing, always start with the most expensive collection and then work your way down. Starting with the most expensive collection anchors them, right? If you've given them the most expensive price first, they're going to have a little sticker shock. They'll get anchored. And then as you show them your cheapest one or least expensive one, it's going to feel so cheap. This is why, by the way, if you ever go to a high-end department store and you tell them that you need a suit and a sweater, they're always going to try and sell you the suit first. Why? Because suits are a lot more expensive. They'll anchor you to the suit. Then they'll go ahead and sell you the sweater that all of a sudden, $150 sweater feels cheap because you've just been shopping for $700 suits.
Exactly. So many good things.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So here we are. We have gotten them to inquire, we're walking them through these packages. I guess my next question, I think a lot of wedding filmmakers do this. They do everything right. I get this question a lot. It's like people are just still telling me no. They're like, I'm only booking like 2 out of every 10 times I talk with somebody or one time. Like, is there a percentage we should be looking at to close once we've got them on the phone? And then also, do you have any tips on how to close the deal without feeling like you're pushing too hard?
Yeah. So number one, you're never going to have 100% closing rate.
You're not?
That's like, well, I don't think it's possible. I think it's just a non-achievable type of thing. Right. So I wouldn't go there. At the same time, your time is really valuable. And if you are only closing 2 out of the 10 phone calls that you're investing in, then you're probably not having a proper screening process. You're just, too many people are walking away without booking you. Now, again, also, one thing that I want to say, John, I heard you say a word that kind of immediately raised a flag for me there. You said, what is the correct way? And I want to tell you guys, there isn't one correct way, right? There isn't one correct way for anything in life. And specifically when it comes to running your business and specifically when it comes to running a wedding business, because couples come in so many flavors and then storytelling comes in so many flavors. And so to say that there's one specific way, I think it's a bit, constricting in my opinion. Whenever you hear an educator say, this is the only way to do it, there's no other way, you probably should run. It's probably going to get you in trouble. Because remember how in the beginning you said, hey, I see these older videographers are now reaching out to me because they want second shooter gigs. That's because they thought there's only one way and they insisted of doing it their way. And now the market has changed and they still want to do it that way. And here we are. And that, by the way, happens to everybody. If you cannot adapt with the market, then you're going to end up being the Kodak. Right?
Yeah.
Who remembers Kodak moment? Right? They used to be huge. And look at Kodak now. They still live in business? Right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll Google it afterwards. All right. So there isn't one specific way. Now, but what is the way that I feel comfortable with that I know works? So number one, what are the percentages? So the way I see it is out of everybody who comes to your website, about 1% should inquire with you. So for every 100 people that visit your website, about one person should inquire, give or take. Out of all of those people that inquire with you, about 20 to 25% should be getting on a call with you, right? And out of those, about 3/4 should be giving you a check, if not more. And when I say check, I mean a deposit. Hopefully you're not still collecting paper checks.
Talking about dated systems.
Right, exactly. Hey, take it to the 21st century and, ask for a deposit in Bitcoin. Right. What I mean is, like, your time is really valuable. If you've already gotten to a place where you're getting on a call with them, I'd say 3/4 of those should be giving you money. Now, if you see that you're getting on phone calls and it's all good, but then you're not closing enough of those, something is wrong with your phone call system. You're either being too pushy, or you're not giving enough info. Maybe you're showing up late to your phone calls, which is a very bad idea. Maybe you're showing up early to your calls, which is a bad idea. If you set your calls at 10 o'clock, guess what? You should be calling them exactly at 10:00. Not at 9:59, not at 10:01. Literally, what I like to do with phone calls, if I have a phone call with you at 10, I'll sit at my desk at about 9:55. I'll get ready. I'll kind of stretch a little bit. I'll smile. I'll do all of that. And then I'll look at the clock, and exactly when it hits 10, I'll dial your number. That makes it feel like it does. If I show up early, I don't have enough shit to do. I'm not busy enough. But if I show up late, I don't care enough about you and I'm disrespecting your time. If I show up exactly on time, like, oh, dang, that's good. He's very organized. He's very punctual. And that's okay. You don't have to see the crazy mess that's in my car. All you're seeing is the beautiful background here behind the video. And I look organized, right? Showing up on time is super important. Now, if you're showing up on time and you're still not closing enough, like I said, you might be going straight to business. You're not taking enough time to learn about them. If you are taking enough time to learn about them and you're still not closing, then something is wrong with your collections or your pricing. You're either priced too low or you're priced too high, or your pricing is very difficult to understand. If you've checked all these boxes, you show up on time, you spend a good chunk of the phone call getting to know them and listening, and your pricing are properly done, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be closing the deal unless you're not available for their date, right? And that shouldn't be a thing. If they hopped on a phone with you, we should already have gotten past the date. We should have already gotten past the style. If they hop on a call with you and they tell you, oh, we don't like your style, why are we even talking? How did we get here, right? It shouldn't be a thing. Once we're talking, the only reason you're not booking me is because I've done something wrong on the phone call. There's no other reason.
So good.
Yeah. That is really good, and that's a tough thing to do. Figure out where is it breaking down, right? Like if I'm getting a bunch of phone calls but I'm not booking a bunch, break it down. One of the things that we have a script for my phone call, which I kind of have it memorized now. No, I do have it memorized now, but I still have that as an outline. And so if I'm frustrated with that, then take it to somebody else and say, hey, let me go over this with you. And where did this make you feel icky? Where did I lose you? And maybe can help someone that way, help yourself that way so that you can figure out your sales call. Max, this has been great talking with you. We're running short on time, but we have a couple more questions that I want to touch on. Number one, as we're thinking about marketing, and you've brought up, a bunch of psychology stuff, that has to do with marketing and that kind of stuff. And so our question goes to, if you want to learn more about the marketing process and how to sell people and do it in a way that's not like super sleazy and that sort of thing. Do you have any resources or books or anything that you would recommend for people to check out if they really want to take a deeper dive in how to market and connect to people?
Yeah, totally. So number one, be a student of psychology, because psychology is the operating system of the humans, right? Just like when you learned your operating system on your computer to be able to properly use it, just like you've invested into learning the operating system of your camera, what each button does, you need to learn what each button in the human mind does. It's much harder, but it's doable, and you do not need a degree in psychology. Some really good books to read. I would start with a book. This is a classic one, and it's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. Now, the tone in the book is a bit negative because he's showing how some people misuse marketing and psychology to take advantage of other people. But nonetheless, you can learn from it and just use it in a better way. Just like electricity can be used to kill somebody and it can be used to heat your home. It's on you to stay ethical, right? Okay, so that's one book that I'd recommend. Another book that I'd recommend which has a very positive spin on marketing psychology, is called Marketing to Mind States by Will, I think it's Leach. I'm not sure how to exactly, it's Leach. Will, and it's, I know it's available on Amazon. So Marketing to Mind State's a fantastic book to read. Now, if you've read those couple of books and you're ready to take it to a more complex level and you want to go to the granddaddy of marketing psychology, the guy who actually won a Nobel Prize for what's called behavior economics. The name is misleading. We call it behavior economics, but it's really just marketing psychology. And that book is called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Conman. Like, this dude literally legit won a Nobel Prize for this work. So I'd recommend giving it a read. Now, it's not an easy read. It's a 600 some page book. And it has an academic, yeah, easy peasy. Read it before dinner. It has a little bit of an academic spin to it. So that makes it a bit difficult. Now, if you're more of an auditory type of person, go find a podcast called, The Brainy Business. And it has nothing to do with the wedding industry, but it's all about using psychology in marketing. Really, really good podcast, The Brainy Business. And then another thing that I'd recommend to be a student of psychology is observing yourself and others. Like, if you're going to hold a Zoom call with your potential couple, go ahead and record it. And then a few days later, watch it back. Watch it back so that you can analyze, you can, sit there quietly and look what you're saying and then look at their facial expressions. You could tell so much by their facial expressions. If they look bored, if they look a little like, if you're saying something and they do this, you shouldn't say that again. If you're saying something and they do this, that was a good idea, right? If you're saying something and their eyes are wandering, you're boring, right? So analyze your own Zoom calls. If you're doing phone calls, record a phone call. Be aware there's certain laws and regulations around that. Do your own research. I'm not an attorney to tell you what's legal and what's not. Just ask the most important attorney in the world, Google. But setting the legal stuff aside, record your phone call. Then a few days later, listen to it. It's amazing how much you're going to hear that you didn't hear while you were on the phone call. Because while you're on the phone call, your mind is focused on closing the deal. But if you're listening to it a few days later in the evening when you're chilled, your mind is in a different place and you're going to pick up certain things. So I think those are all really good resources. Is learn from books, learn from podcasts, learn from YouTube, and then learn by recording and observing your own activity.
Very, very good. All right. So we're almost out of time. I feel like we could probably, with you, always go for hours and hours. Is there anything else, Max, that you'd like to add about anything that we've talked about that's kind of lingering to say, or are you good? Because there's so many things.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
You being a wedding videographer already puts you in the best competitive advantage out of all the other vendors. You have the skills to tell a story and you know how to do it with a camera. You're already 95% there. 5% is not that much. If it's hard right now, if it's difficult right now, don't give up. Look at the people that are really successful and see what they're doing. And try to understand what is it they do and you don't, right? You guys, you have the Johns and the Nicks of the world. Look at what they're doing. Don't literally duplicate it word for word. That'd be silly. But try to understand the underlying reasons, right? When John or Nick say something in the course that they do, ask yourself why. And if you're not sure why, ask them, right? And you guys will tell them. If somebody asks you like, hey, why do you do it this way? Then you'll explain. Understanding the underlying reason will allow you to become a marketing rock star and maybe also do $300,000 or $400,000 worth of weddings a year, like some of the best performing videographers out there.
Nick.
Good stuff, Max. Thank you so much for.
Good job, Mackie.
Mackie, I'll take it.
Oh man, thank you so much.
Running to change my name on Facebook.
yeah, go for that. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. If people want, to just follow you, get more information from you, where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, so on Facebook, Instagram, and Clubhouse, all three is the same as the @ maxim.sadik. I'm pouring a lot into Clubhouse lately because it's interesting, it's new and exciting. But you can find me on all of those platforms. DM me. I will always answer your DM. Unless you're trying to sell me something, and then I won't. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, it's the same thing, but without the dot. If you just want to connect and you want to remember one easy way, go to marketingbymax.com. It'll give you a very basic landing page that has a very simple way to connect with me via DM or email.
Incredible. Well, Max, you are a wealth of knowledge. You have helped us in the trajectory of our businesses, and you are just a great guy, great person to hang around with. So we thank you for taking the time and for encouraging and helping out our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Wow, what an episode. My mind is blown. I've got pages of notes. Got mental notes. Max is a wealth of knowledge. If you did not take notes, please go back and listen to this episode. We cannot stress to you enough how important these things are that we talked about today. Post a comment in our Facebook group. Let us know what you thought. Join us on Clubhouse. Join us on Instagram. Everywhere there is. Check us out at howtofilmweddings.com, and we will see you next week. Are you looking for a better way to deliver your wedding films to your couples? Look no further. Our friends over at Wedflow provide the most flexible video delivery solution on the market. Wedflow is pay per project with no large upfront cost or commitment, and you can cancel anytime. Not only that, Wedflow offers a premium viewing experience for your couples, accessible on mobile, tablet, desktop, as well as their very own suite of TV apps. Each project comes with 10 years hosting and an experience for your clients that will blow them away. Stop delivering your films the old-fashioned way and give your couples something to rave about. Head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedflow to check out Wedflow today.